The Prime lineup of motherboards from ASUS is aiming at customers that have budget as major criteria when selecting PC parts. And while A320 and A520 chipsets are the norm in this segment, mid-range chipsets like the B350, 450 and 550 do make an appearance. Well, the Prime B550M-A-WiFi is one such board, and it ticks too many of the right boxes to not talk about it. Much like the previously reviewed A320M Grenade, the Prime B50M-A boards come with a heatsink over the V-core faces. This is a nice touch, and allows using tower coolers for your CPUs without worrying too much for the temperature of the VRMs. The 4 V-core faces use a tried and true topology, with a single high-side MOSFET, 2 low-side MOSFETs and a single coil. The 2 SoC phases use 2 high-side and 2 low-side MOSFETs per phase. They also use 2 coils per phase for the same reason as doubling the MOSFETs on both high and low side. Reducing the electrical resistance means less power losses and less heat being produced by the VRMs. The DIMM slots, 4 of them, and also just 4 clips for all 4 slots. As I dreaded, we have the one clip at one end type of slot here. Like pretty much all B50 based boards, the ASUS implementation offers 2 M.2 slots, one above the PCIe X16 slot connected to the CPU and working at Gen 4 speeds, and another one close to the chipset. This latter one is connected to the chipset, and while also offering 4 lanes, they will be of a lower speed. Unfortunately, the board also offers only 1.5 PCIe X1 slots, with the bottom one being pretty much always available. But the one under the X16 slot is going to be covered by any gaming GPU made in the last 15 years or so, and that's why I count it only as half of a slot. Fortunately, however, all 4 SATA connectors are placed on the bottom edge of the board, far away from the X16 slot. They are also the straight variety, which makes sense considering their placement. The assortment of pin headers on the bottom edge starts off fairly bland, with the 2 audio output headers, the front panel and the SPI DIF, followed by a serial COM port header. We then get an ARGB and a 12V RGB header, followed by 2 USB 2 headers and the front panel header. And just above the SATA ports, we have the clear RTC pins, and in case of this board, a transistor that needed a bit of resoldering. The USB 3 pin header is placed next to the ATX power connector, and this makes it easier to connect the cable from the case. I see this placement quite often on ASUS boards, so good job there. The board does have a couple more pin headers worth mentioning, and the first one is another RGB header. This one runs as 12V and is placed close to the top right corner of the board. The second one is a TPM header placed next to the BIOS chip, which makes me think that, besides allowing external TPM modules, it can also be used to do some in-circuit reprogramming for the SPI chip. I guess 2 things stand out in the rear I/O department, with the first one being the Wi-Fi connectors. Any chip antenna can fit there, if the original one is not available. The second one is the video outputs, 2 digital in the form of HDMI and DVI-D, but also the old VGA. Otherwise, the board has 6 USB ports Type A, 1 gigabit LAN port, and your usual 3 jack audio. And speaking of which, let's have a listen to the microphone input. This is for the ASUS B550M-A Wi-Fi, rear audio input, volume 100%, preamp. The BIOS from ASUS is pretty much what you'd expect, with the initial easy mode allowing you to change the most frequently tweaked settings, DOCP profiles, rebar and the fan curve. To change the CPU frequency, you'd need to go to the advanced mode in the AI tweaker page. The CPU core ratio can then be adjusted in step of 0.25 or 25 MHz in terms of frequency. For Zen 2 and Zen 3 CPUs, however, being able to apply an undervolt to the V-core may be even more important to keep it under the values recommended by TSMC. So, in the AI tweaker, use an offset for the VDD-CR, choose minus and play a bit with the offset, checking that the PC actually manages to boot into Windows. As I mentioned before, DOCP profiles can be set from the easy mode, but they can also be specified from the advanced mode. A plus for the advanced mode, however, is being able to manually specify other frequencies and timings for your DDR. This way, you're not restricted to the memory profile state with the RAM. Rebar and TPM settings are fairly straightforward. For rebar, enable the above 4G decoding and then leave rebar to auto. In terms of fan support, I will have to deduct a point from ASUS. The board supports only PVM fans for the CPU cooler. Now, I know, even the stock coolers from AMD are PVM, but some of the AliExpress coolers are DC controlled, and other motherboard manufacturers do support them. You can then specify either one of the predefined fan curves or tweak the fan curve labeled as manual. The BIOS does come with some tools, and while the BIOS updating tool is more or less considered a given, you also get an utility to low-level erase your SSD. Despite the Prime moniker, I found this particular motherboard to be pretty good. As mentioned in the intro, it ticks a lot of the checkboxes that I think matter. It has a heatsink over the vCore MOSFET, so you're not restricted to downdraft coolers. The audio input is good, and the SATA ports and Endo 2 connectors are well placed. Among the things that detract from it, I'll mention the DIMM slots with latches at just one end, and the lack of support for DC fans when it comes to the CPU cooler. Still, a pretty good board to have, allowing you to use Gen 4 SSDs and video cards. Coupled with the 4 DIMM slots and the 2 M.2 slots, this board and the Ryzen 5 3600 will be a good upgrade for a buddy of mine that currently uses the A320M Grenade and the Ryzen 5 2600. We will get both better and worse M4 boards to have a look at. If you find this kind of videos interesting, then stay tuned. As for this one, we're done. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked it, and I'll see you for the next one.